We're back, baby! With another devlog of our game Quiet on Set. We're trying to create a no-compromise story video game set in the golden age of Hollywood. We're trying to document the entire production of this game from start to finish, so enjoy! So the main thing we worked on this week was blocking out the opening of the game, and we find it really important because this is that moment where you're hooking the player in, getting them intrigued in what's going on. Ask a lot of questions, but don't give them answers. And so we want to do that with level design, and that's kind of what we have been doing, is trying to block out the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game. So one of the things we think we got right with our previous game was really nailing down the opening to the game, the introduction to everything. And so we're gonna just go over some of the things that we want to kind of carry over into our next game in terms of design principles. The first point of this is to give the player kind of like an initial kick into the world, into the story, and set up kind of like the carrot on the stick that kind of pushes them forward. The next thing would be to teach them the controls. This is kind of a necessary thing for games in particular, but teach them the controls in a way that isn't like super tutorial.
Watch and learn.
We want to kind of gradually introduce it, and hopefully they'll be learning the controls without really know that they're learning the controls. We want the actual mechanics and gameplay aspects to be in the background. They just come natural to you, and we don't want to have text pop up and tell you what you need to do, because it just kills your momentum and the flow of the game. We want you to just pick things up naturally, and that just takes a lot of work designing that kind of natural feeling and flow to acclimating a player to the game. Within that short amount of time starting the game, we want the player to see, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of potential with these things, and we have their expectations very high, which will carry them further into the game. It should. If it doesn't, we failed. And I guess the last thing that we really want to get right is to wow the player. Something from the very beginning, when they boot up the game, there's explosions, and guys flying through the air, and guns. There should be something right at the beginning that gets the player excited about playing the game. It's just like a good movie, and a lot of our decisions are kind of based off of good movies. Typically, you have the inciting incident that is telling you, hey, this is what you are in store for. What's in store? This is what you're in for. No good piece of art is void of inspiration altogether, and it's the same with us. One of the inspirations I would like to pull from for the opening to our game is Bioshock. I think Bioshock is a really good example of hooking you with the atmosphere, the art, just the setting of the game, how you go up to that light tower and everything. It's just setting you up to the world. It's just great. So when we were working on the pedestrian, the opening was one of the areas in the game that got remade and evolved like the most. So it's definitely, that will be this exact same with this game, where as we are progressing through it and as we have people play testing it, I'm very sure that we're gonna be like, oh, let's redo this part, let's add this, let's change that. So it's definitely going to be an evolution, the opening will be. Gray boxing is a very common thing, especially in AAA games, simply because when you're working on a large project, you need to have that quick turnaround time to iterate on something, and we are most definitely going to need to adjust a path. Or this past week, we had to swap an area. So if we had started doing all of the art for the game at this point, that would have been a major headache to like swap an area like that. But because it's just a bunch of boxes, it doesn't really matter. We can do those, big sweeping changes really easy.
Right, and you do have to use your imagination a lot to visualize, oh, this gray box is going to be some epic looking thing. But it will look cool in the future. And then eventually, once we play the whole game and use our imagination like crazy, and we're like, okay, this is probably gonna feel pretty good. I can play through the whole game. Now let's start replacing the gray boxing with real art. So with all that being said, we've blocked out the very beginning of the game. It's super rough and it doesn't look great. It's pretty pitiful actually, but this is the start of something special. You start the game out, you boot it up. You don't even need a main menu, screw that kind of crap. What we're gonna do, boot up the game, comes right to this shot right here. There's a hole in the ceiling. There's a little fire bits on the ground. It won't be so dark in here. And you look around, it looks like an old fantasy stable. And then you can look up and it's like, whoa, there's a castle up there and there's fire and smoke pluming out from the top of the castle, which makes you think that fire and stuff must have come in here. Maybe I fell through the roof of this stable. So let's venture out and see. Yep, that's a castle. Wow. And then around us is going to be an old fantasy style town. Got a nice little bridge with a stream, and this will be a water mill. Looks like this is downtown where there will be like a little shopping area. Looks just like a good old fashioned fantasy area. What is this over here? That doesn't look fantasy. Whoa, this whole time I was in a movie studio backlot? Now that's a twist. What's this, a van? Over to you, Jed.
So one of the other things that we've been doing is getting the little bare bones prototype that we had running in Unity kind of recreated in Unreal. So as you'll see, you can walk up to the van and we have the cameras over here too. You can pick up the cameras and place them. Then you can actually get in the van. Now this is really very bare bones. This is just to get the basics working. So you'll see I can drive around. I can look around also while I'm driving. Then what you could do, grab one of the cameras, and we'll also have it so that you can put the cameras in your van, because the van's gonna be kind of like the central hub. So it's like, oh, what is this? Some sort of thing going on in this sound stage. So I could place a camera right here and then go back to the van. Here in the back, I can get in, boop, and these are like monitors. So I can click on one of the monitors and now I'm looking through the wrong camera. But you get the idea. So that now I'm controlling the camera, I can look around, and this is where you'll be able to see the past through the perspective of the camera. So these are like the really basics that will need a lot of work and expounded upon, but this is a really big step to get to this point. You know, a month ago, we've never opened up Unreal before, and so now to get to this point within, you know, a relatively short period of time is pretty cool. So now that I've been getting into Unreal and learning the system, C++ and the blueprint system, it really is pretty sick. It's awesome that you can create kind of underlying mechanics in C++, and then you can use blueprints to kind of tie and knit all of your mechanics together, all of your code, and then that allows you to do kind of like arbitrary things, like arbitrary timing of things. So you could have like, oh, at this specific point, I want to fire off a particle effect, or you know, whatever. Like it gives you a lot of flexibility having those two systems so tightly integrated with each other.
All right, that's it for this episode. If you guys have been following us on this series and you haven't subscribed yet, we haven't really asked anybody to ever do that, but subscribing would probably be helpful so that we can grow this YouTube channel and this series, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming in the future. So thanks a lot for watching, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace.